Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of Vox and Jed Fight About It. And today is our 10th episode. Very exciting, very excited, because today we're doing a
Yeah.
stories episode. We're going to tell stories about us, because all of our guests every single time has been like, we want to hear about you, whenever we ask them questions about them, and we get like narcissistic and go on a tangent. But yeah, that's what we're doing today. But
Turns out when you
first,
have a podcast, people want to hear about you. It turns
yeah.
out it's actually worth having a podcast and talking about yourself instead of just like rambling about movies you saw. But first, we need to talk about the numbering. We have to talk about
Yeah.
episode numbering. There's a very big elephant in the room for the show, and we need to talk about the numbering. So recently, a certain someone who we've had on the show in the past, Sebastian Bush. I'll name drop him. I don't care. We already did in last episode when we had to add that little addendum. Did something deplorable that we won't get into the details of in this explanation, but and so we had to retract a bunch of statements. And a couple of our guests asked us, "Hey, can you take down my episode of the show where I'm saying nice things about him or featuring alongside him?" Because it's just like, and understandably so. This is not. Do not blame them for those episodes going down. I was already considering it. I was already considering taking down at least, one of the episodes featuring him directly. So it's not like it's anybody's fault. But those episodes had to go. Namely, number 6 and number 8 are gone. We're continuing the numbering as is. We've added a disclaimer to every episode previous where we mention Bush in the description.
Like every
explaining, like, hey, we didn't know. Nobody knew. Anyway. But that's our go-forward plan. I tweeted about it the night of, but we had already, recorded the little addendum for that episode before the plan was made. And the episode had to be out in 16 hours, and it had already exported, and it was already uploaded. And if I wanted to get any sleep at all, I had to go ahead and step away and let that be the way that it was, and just call it good enough. So yeah, we've added that little addendum to this episode, which is more about the numbering than it is about Bush, but you know. Just a little additive before we get on with the show.
Yeah. That's pretty much the last time we will ever talk about Bush. I want.
Hopefully.
So yeah. Bar fucking something absurd happening, that should be the last time. But
yeah, it shouldn't be brought up again. It's just I felt like we needed to explain. Anyway.
Absolutely. But moving on. As I was saying earlier, it's our story episode day. So, it only seems fair to start the story off with how we met. So, just to set the stage here, Vox how long had you been in VR chat off and on at that point? Like a couple months?
Off and on at that point, I had been in a couple months before I met you, and then I got my headset in May of 2020, maybe even March. I think it was March, dead start of the pandemic. Just a very lucky time to purchase that. And I got my headset and I was like, what's this VR chat thing about? And I messed around with it for a couple days. Got called all sorts of names for using the Oculus Quest. And then I was just like, you know what? I don't know if this is for me, really. I'm not really having any meaningful conversations. I see that this is for other people. It's not for me. I'm just going to log off. And then I decided to give it a second chance. I played for about a month at that stage. And then I decided to give it a second chance around August, maybe end of July 2020. Because I was bored and at home and figured what else could I be doing,
Yeah.
And so I'm hopping public instances and I'm just trying to find people to talk to, just to vibe with.
Yeah. And for me, I had gotten my headset in around the same time, I think. And I had hopped into VR chat once. I used to play it on desktop, and then I stopped playing it on desktop, and then I picked up a headset way later, and I mainly just played solo games. That's still what I do in VR. That's why I like VR. But I was like, fuck it, I'll hop into VR chat tonight, see what happens. And I loaded in, and I load into, God, what was that? What was that place
It was
called? Midnight
Midnight Rooftop.
Yeah. And I come downstairs and I'm socially awkward and I show up in, I think, an Among Us avatar or something stupid. It was a temp avatar that like I knew it was temp. Um or maybe it was one of the default avatars, but either way, I rock downstairs and I see somebody with a Space Core avatar, and Portal is probably, it was my favorite game. If not in the top 5, and it still is in my top 5 games. So I was like, "Oh shit, something Portal." And I walked up and I go, "Hey, I like that avatar." And it was Vox, and he goes like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'm looking through this like avatar search thing," and I was like, "An avatar search? What?" Because I was so new to everything that it was like, "How are you doing that?" And it was a side loader and it was a mod and everything. Um, and then he switches out of it, and we're still kind of chatting a little bit, and he switches into this like e-boy bi avatar with like the jankiest, worst weight painted hands you've
Yeah,
ever seen.
no, I was at the time I was looking for avatars to just exist in that I liked permanently. And I ended up finding a couple that I liked pre getting like my own model. Which still needs updating. I still want to get that model updated even if I don't use it for VR chat. I would totally just love to have an updated 3D model. But either way, I was looking for avatars, and at the time the reason I was in the Space Core avatars because I was looking at hand puppet avatars. Just because I found them very like intriguing and interesting, just the amount of expression you could get out of a little floating thing in place of yourself, you know? It was nice. It was nice. It was additive to the illusion for me to be able to have a little guy on my hand. It was like it was a neat little side tangent of avatar exploring. But no, yeah, that's basically how we met. There's not really much more to it than that in
Well,
terms of like our personal relationship anyway.
yeah, not for our personal relationship, but something funny that I wanted to talk about that happened with that was you turned into this bi avatar, and I was like, "Oh, I should get an ace one," and you're like, "Oh, I can get that for you real quick," and you got it for me, and I used that ace avatar for months. I used that ace avatar for longer than you used that bi avatar.
Yeah.
And then the thing is that the ace and the bi avatar were the exact same avatars, except the ace one had white hair and an ace shirt instead of a bi shirt, and blonde hair. Um and we're like hanging out in the same instance, and like 4 people rock up to us and they're like, are you guys like twins or something? What are you doing?" And then they all turned into variations of this same avatar. And we had a night, and we had a very small group that I think we called like the boys or something, that like lasted 2 weeks, I think. Give or
Yeah, that
take.
group did not last long. That group did not last long. It was just some other guys we had run into and who were interested in just like all 4 of
Dicking
us. I
about.
think there were 5 of us total just dicking about for the
Yeah.
evening. And then we lost like 2 of our 5 after that night. And then like
Yeah.
it became like 3 of us.
Yeah, like
And
me, you,
then
and a guy named Lemon.
you and Lemon logged off for like the last time because I logged off for a week. I put the headset
Yeah.
down. I put the headset down for like 2 weeks. So I was just
Yeah,
like,
for like
and
personal stuff.
at the time, well, because it was like my like I was spending a lot of time on personal stuff, and so I didn't have as much time for VR, and I genuinely, it made me so sad to be out of it. I like, I was like, man, I've been out of VR for so long now, and it's like it had only been like a week. It had been like a week that I
Yeah.
wasn't in VR, and it's like, dude, that's sad to think back on. But it's just like,
Yeah.
no, yeah, I got out for 2 weeks, and then like I got back in, and nobody I knew was online, and I was just like, all right, then back to it, I guess. And so I started hanging out in pub instances, and I met a lot of our friends who are still our friends to this day. Um, I met I met Jazz first, and we hung out with Jazz, who is a friend of ours. Or I hung out with Jazz. And then we met an old friend called Chopper, who we don't hang out with anymore. But then we met. It was just me, Jazz, and Chopper for a little while, and then you came back, and we had a night. And have we told that story on the podcast, the Phasmophobia story?
I think because on the Crim episode, Crim really liked Phasmophobia, but we could say it again since this is the story episode.
Well, I have something to reveal to you. I have something to
Okay.
reveal to you about this story if we retell it. So,
Okay.
I want to retell this story. So I was hanging out with Jez, and it was me and Jez alone because Chopper wasn't in yet. We would have like a period of time because I would get in first, and then Jez would get in shortly after, and I would join off them, or they would join off me in whatever pub I was doing. And then Chopper would join and immediately drag us to like a private instance. Which in hindsight they were probably just trying to get
AJR.
Yeah, they were probably just trying to drag Jazz to a private instance, but they were also a very private person. They didn't like to speak. They were what is called a mute in VR chat. Well, I guess they're called a mute IRL too, but somebody who is like not on like mute in VR chat means something different where it's like, yeah, no, for whatever reason I can speak usually, but for whatever reason I choose not to. It's just like a form of self-expression that's very, very common there. In just like communicating with body language or text chat if an avatar has like a text chat feature or what have you.
Inbuilt.
Yeah, oh god, it is inbuilt now, huh?
Yeah.
But then they would drag us to a private instance and we would hang out there, usually Valhalla, and then Valhalla became the usual hangout spot. Either way, old Valhalla, not even new Valhalla. But still see purple to this day. But that particular night, I was hanging out with Jazz. Chopper wasn't in yet, and then Jed, Jazz is like, yeah, I'm gonna go play Phasmophobia real quick, and because some friends invited me to, but I'll probably be back after the round. And I was like, yeah, all right. The night's still young. It was only like 9 p.m. and we would be on till like 6 a.m. at that point. Ugh. Yeah, no. But like, I was like, all right, night's still young. I'll see you around when you end up hopping back in. And then Jed rounds the corner. And at this point, I had gotten my 3D model done, and I was no longer an e-boy.
I was so scared. I was horrified.
Yeah, no, and you were like audibly distressed, and you were like, so what do you got going on here? Yeah, and I was like, oh, you know, I've got this like rat thing going on these days. Don't worry about it, because I had just recently done the rebrand. I had just recently done the rebrand not too long ago. But you know, and it's fair because that early avatar was not. It was Jazz had made it for me. And I had paid them handsomely for it. Did you know VR chat avatars are cheap now? By the way, I hate to go off on a side tangent. Like I was watching a video about avatar creation and the culture around it, and everybody was like, yeah, I don't know. I charge like $20 for like my pre-made avatars, and I was like, okay, that's pretty standard, you know, on like Gumroad. But if you wanted me to make you something from complete scratch, I'd probably have to say like $60, which I know is pretty steep for most people. And that was the average. It's fucked up. Anyway,
but yeah, you were awesome. And
you were like, we were talking about it, and we got a little bit of time to catch up, and then 20 minutes later. Not even 20 minutes. Jazz rocks back up. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
Well, no, I was still calling you by like your first name. That was
yeah. You were calling me by my legal name. Yeah. You know, and so that was the thing. I stopped going by my legal name like at that stage, and I had to like ease you into that. But no, yeah. Jazz rocks back up after like 10 minutes. I shit you not. And comes back and goes, do not play Phasmophobia in VR.
It was like not yelling about it.
Yeah, like they were like desperately trying to get this warning out of just like, don't play it.
It's
don't
awful.
fucking play it. Everything's covered in grease. And VR sucks for it. And there's no proper hand tracking and walking around in it. It's so fucking like hard to see anything. And who are you? You know, and they turned to Jed, and Jed was like, "I'm Jed," you know. Then they were like, "All right, anyway, I can't stay on tonight. I just wanted to tell you about that. I've gotta go." And they logged off for the evening, and then we go and we play Phasmophobia because you turned to me and instantly went, "Now I kind of want to go play Phasmophobia. Now I want to try it. You got $7?" And of course, I was single and I was rolling in it, so I was just like, "Yeah, no." I had far less like debt and bills to pay at the time. So I was like, yeah, I could drop $8 right now. Fuck it. Let's go play some Phasmophobia. It was far before I was broke. and a time I reminisce on very frequently. But we got into VR, we got into Phasmophobia together, and we're sitting in this loading screen, and I'm like, oh god, I'm sitting in this like lobby screen they put you in before the game, and it's like, oh god, they were right, everything is covered in grease,
It
and
really
it
does
was.
look bad.
I don't know if they got better. I don't know if
Yeah, I don't know.
Phasmophobia in VR got better, but
This was
anyway,
when Phasmophobia was like brand
we
spanking
got
new.
into a round and we were like, okay, well, what do we do? What are all these pieces of equipment? There's no tutorial, so I guess we just kind of like figure it out. And we're walking around this cabin map, and we're like flipping through doors and like flicking light switches and shit, and the power's out. So we're like stumbling around in the dark with these flashlights that won't stay on, by the way.
No. Or they
and
like when you like clip them to your jacket, they were facing down for some reason, and it was like this is not helpful. This is in
this
fact
is
less than
unusable.
helpful.
Yeah,
But
either way, the flashlights weren't super usable. I remember that. And then about 30 minutes in, we're still just sitting here and like in an empty house, no scares, no ghosts, no nothing, and
yeah,
no
just
idea
walking
how to
around.
progress. And do you know what I do? I close the game. I open the Steam menu. I've lied about this for years. I close the game and go, yeah, I don't know. I think my game just fucking crashed. I'm done. I'm getting out of here. Because what was going through my head was, this is an awkward moment for the both of us. I think if we did it today, I wouldn't have done that, obviously, because like, you know, we're pretty good friends. We're pretty good friends, and we get along well. We can get through a shitty. We can,
good friends.
we can get through the awkwardness. We can get through the awkwardness of a shitty game together. But like, I was just like, this is kind of awkward, and I don't know how long he wants to keep at this for. I'd like to be able to refund this game though, so I want to be out of here before the 2-hour mark. In fact, I want to be out of here as soon as possible. So I just like I manually go into the Steam overlay as you had like walked away to go check out another room of the cabin, and I close the game because I was like, we're not fucking getting anywhere with this. Maybe I'll try it later, maybe I won't, but I'm probably gonna refund it. And I close the game and I go, like I am looking at the exit game button and I hit it and I go, ah fuck, I think my game just crashed. Like audibly, like the best, like the most Oscar worthy acting I've ever done in my life. And I don't do shit like that anymore. Like I don't do shit like that anymore. But at the time it was just like, dude, how long can I fucking play this? And I didn't have a rapport with you at the time because we had just started talking again and we barely talked in the first place. And so I was just like, I don't want to disappoint this guy, but I need it out. I need a way to not be playing this video game. And I've lied about it for years since because it's like that's such an awkward thing to come out about. But
no, I knew.
Yeah,
like I like that's not a hard thing to see. But like yeah, that was our Phasmophobia moment. And yeah, and then
doing
I got
the fucking video game equivalent of crumpling a paper ball into the fucking phone mic and going, yeah, sorry, I got bad reception.
Yeah. No, but from then on we hung out for a few days. This was December 29th that this night. This is December 29th going into December 30th.
Did you pull photos for receipts?
30th. No, I just remember the date because then the night of the 30th to the 31st, we hung out in an apartment world, and I had met Yvy that night, and Chopper had like danced up on me one time, and I was very uncomfortable being a wee lad of 15 years old and like horrified, and Vox like stopped him.
Which, by the way, nobody knew Jed's age be included at the time.
No, you knew.
No, you told me you were 16 at the time.
Yes,
and I was just like,
you knew.
I'm only 18, so that's not that big of a gap, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I think I was 19 actually, but I was newly 19.
You're 19. Yeah, you're just barely 19. But like it was.
And I was just like, this is a guy in VR I'm probably only gonna hang out with like 7 times. Doesn't fucking matter.
That's why I lied about my age. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I was gonna hang out with you for longer, but the problem was that I was hanging out with a couple of the guys that it was like, yep, these guys are gonna drop. Like I don't have a great rapport with these guys. I don't want to hang out with these guys for longer than a week. And they like asked my age, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm like 16. I just turned like 16, and I had just turned 15. And then you showed up, and they're still going off about like, wow, you're 15. That's actually kind of crazy. You don't sound it. And then you show up, and I was just like, oh fuck, okay, yeah, I'm 16. And then I was stuck in that lie for 2.5 years until like it was like 4 months away from my birthday, where I would have been quote unquote turning 18, and it's like I'm turning 17. This is gonna be a problem. Like I'm gonna be saying I'm not a minor when I am, and so it's like, okay, I gotta come clean. Because like I would have come clean sooner, but it was just in the like stage where it's like, okay, it's been like 2 months. That's like just long enough that it's like, what the fuck? Why didn't you tell me? But it's just like it just
There wasn't an
progressively got worse and
opening.
worse.
It's like I understand for that kind of thing because it's like there's no opening to go, hey, by the way, I lied about my age. You know, there's not a clean way to do that. No matter how you do it, it's gonna be fucked up. You know, and so it's like, and to be fair, even though you came out about it like years later, I don't think anybody was mad at you. Like I don't think anybody was upset at you for it because like you gave that same reasoning of like the first time I said my age to anybody in this group was Vox, and I wasn't even saying it to Vox. I was saying it to like some other guys who just like asked my age off rip, and I didn't want to tell them I was fucking 15. So, you know. And it's like, I don't know, we've all been there. I think we've all been there once or twice where it's like, you know, you fudge the numbers a little bit.
And you get caught in a lie a bit. But like, yeah, no, either way, Chopper, you know, we were having a night and we had a good time that night. And then the next night was the 31st going into the 1st. So it was New Year's, and it was like, it was a great time. We were going to have a good time. We all got on, and it turns out, if you didn't know, 2020, there was this big thing that happened that nobody could like go outside. So they got all their social experiences online, and that was mainly VR chat.
Meaning there was a lot leading up, including it still being the pandemic, by the way, to this particular VR chat New Year being the biggest one. And it kicked off a practice on New Year that I think is over now. I think they've finally managed to prepare enough for it. But every year, VR chat crashes on New Year. Like, the servers go all the way down just from, like, over encumbrance. And, you know, it was a tradition for like a couple years there. Like that's how catastrophic this 2020 like failure of the servers was because of how many people wanted to be on. Was that the next year they thought they were prepared for it, and just about the same load, if not more, came through, and they fucking did it again. And then it happened again in 2022 on a much smaller scale. They were only down for like an hour that night instead of the whole night. But you know, VR Chat New Year is a big party for both, like, you know, VR Chat community as a whole and, like, of course, the world. And so, you know.
No, but, like, I was loading in. You weren't able to load in.
I wasn't able to load in at all. That's what it was. I was, like, I was sitting in the loading screen in a Discord call. Or not even in a Discord call. I was just sitting in a loading screen all night. Just, like, man, I hope the servers, because the servers in my area weren't down, but they were trying to mitigate some of the server traffic a little bit, and I was part of that server traffic that needed mitigating, and so I just wasn't allowed to join the game at all, and so I had to hear about this secondhand from Jazz. I think in a DM call. I definitely was in call with Jazz that night, for one reason or another. So that was something.
But I'm in VR chat. And I'm hanging out, and then my headset, it had a breakaway point, and that's fairly common for VR chat headsets, where it's like, or just VR headsets, not VR chat headsets, but that's common for VR headsets, where it's like, if you walk too far away from your computer, it's gonna break away at this point of the cable, so it doesn't like
there's
rip
a point
your
in the
computer.
Cable, so it doesn't like snatch your computer or snatch it out of the wall and break the cable. It's a safety measure to ensure all your equipment stays safe, and that like if your PC is heavy enough and it can't be snatched out of the wall, you like don't fall flat on your ass. Yeah. Or like break the cable, you know, and so it's a nice feature to have. Anyway.
But I was spending this time hanging out, and then I get up from my my chair that I was sitting in, and I step on the cable at the same time as I get up, so I pull the breakaway, and it breaks off, and then I plug it back in, and normally it's fine. It handles itself, it figures it out, and then you're back in, and you don't even have to restart or anything. But this time, because of the server load, I something happened, but I had desktop movement. Only one person in the lobby could hear me, and I was like locked to using my mouse to look around. And I don't know if you've ever played a VR game where you can look with your mouse and not move your head. That shit is nauseating. And like I was
Yeah,
crumpled
no.
into the ground. And we made the joke from then on of like that was the night that I got like isekai'd into VR chat because it was just like I just got fucking completely destroyed in that night. And I didn't want to log off because I knew that if I logged off to restart, I wouldn't be able to log back in. So I was stuck in this purgatory. And
Dude, rather be in that purgatory in the game than having to wait to get back in, you know?
yeah, because like
It was that hard to get back in because you would spend like, again, I had been in the loading screen for like an hour at that point
yeah,
with no sign of like the servers in my region opening back up again.
yeah, yeah, and like that it was such a new part of the group. It was such a new time for the group that I had this, the like initial being friends with someone where it's the fear of like any time that I stop talking to them could be the last time I talk to them because like we're both people who are acquaintances still.
There's
to a
no
degree.
attachment there. You're just kind
Yeah.
of hanging out, and then one of you will disappear at some stage.
Yeah, or not, and then you end up on a podcast, and it's a whole big mess. But
Yeah.
we after VR chat, we did end up, or after New Year's, we did end up hanging out in VR chat for another 10 days.
A total
After,
sum of 10 days the whole group was in VR
yeah,
chat. And then I effectively killed that. Because I say I did, because I'm the one who pulled the trigger, but we all collectively decided, like, hey, we should probably have a Discord. Because I'm getting sick of not knowing when everybody's going to be on. And, like, being able to ping for things would be nice. And being able to, like, hang out with you guys without having to put on this fuck-ass headset would be great. Because at the time, like, that was a shared sentiment, but mostly for me, because it's like, my headset is, like, dying on me, and I do not know how much longer it has, and I do not know if I'll be able to replace it immediately. And at that point, my VR chat, like, ping issues had begun. They hadn't gotten to their worst, but they had begun, and it's like, I want to hang out with my friends, but, like, and that's the only reason I log on to this goddamn game. But,
yeah, but who knows?
But who knows, So at Jez's behest, me and Jez were both like, yeah, I'll make it. And then I'd like happened to beat them to the punch.
Yeah, well, so I was making it as you were making it, and then Jazz was going to make it, and so it was like a race.
Oh no,
and
me and
none
you
of us
were racing to be the one who could make it.
Yeah.
And well, because I knew you were making it actively, and I was like, nah, I want to do it because I've got a good idea, and my good idea was Cug theming.
Yeah.
And so I like was like, I want to be the one to make it. I've got good theming. I've got a name in mind. I'd like to be able to name it.
Oh my god.
That's what I was doing. And so like I named it based on that bit. I named our server the Kumba Zone.
We didn't talk about the Kumba
which we
bit.
should. We can go back and talk about the Kumba bit now, and then we'll loop around. We'll loop around to the Discord. Don't worry.
Before Jazz got back from Phasmophobia, that night Vox had been doing a bit for assumedly a while. Where
I had been doing this bit for a while. Okay,
yeah.
So during various moments throughout the night, I had this Cug from Mario Sunshine avatar. It was a flat PNG avatar where like the front side of it was the front half of Cug and the back side of it was the back image of Cug. Which is all the data that exists of Cug, so it's the best you can do for a Cug avatar. And this like low quality image, and I found it through the avatar search, and I would break it out, on just like a lonely night one night when I was just like the only one on, so I was just like, what keywords can I put in? And I found that, and I thought it was funny, and I was like, Cug moment. I want to, like, as an experiment to myself, I want to see if I can make Cug moment a thing. I want to see if I can make it stick, at least in my group, And so, like, I started breaking this avatar out during various, like, funny moments throughout the night, or various, like, chill moments throughout the night. Just a moment where I was happy to be around my friends. I would just become this avatar and go, you know what? Cug moment. It's a Cug moment now. And then I would switch back out of it pretty quickly. and that would be the Cug moment. And it became such a thing in our friend group because the first time I broke it out, Jed went, "What is that? Is this some kind of Goomba? You know, like as in like
well, because
Goomba."
you had told me the name of it, and then you like exited out of it, and it got brought up again, and I was like,
"Oh
yeah, you
yeah,"
know,
and
that
then
like
you mentioned it,
like Goomba thing or whatever it's called, and you just like you were like, what the fuck, Goomba? What is that? Um, and we had done that like very minor bit, and then like 3 days later we were hanging out with Jazz, because at this point it wasn't just me and Vox hanging out in that it was all of us, and we're talking to Jazz about it, and Vox, like we're explaining the story, and Jazz ends up laughing so hard that they're rolling on the floor about Kumba. And like
Goomba.
honestly, like the initial Kumba bit was like I don't fucking know the name of it. It genuinely could have ended up as like a dingus Goomba or whatever. Like it could have ended up elsewhere, but for some reason Kumba was so funny to Jazz that became like a core memory for everybody of just like Jazz like rolling on the floor.
Yeah, that was such a core moment. And so that's why I was racing to make the Discord in VR, by the way, where I'm peck typing with like controllers and triggers. I'm racing to create a Discord server. And I go, I got it. And everybody's like, oh, you got it? Okay. Because Jed was like setting up channels in their version of it. And I was like, no, come here. And then Jazz, I'll pass it off. Jazz, I'll pass it off to you. Like, in terms of like moderation, tell me what I need to do, because I do not know how to set up a Discord. Tell me what I need to do to make you, and I still don't to this day, to make you like full moderator, like to make a full moderator role so I can give it to you, and then you can set up all the channels, and then that'll be that. And then I just like left them to it for the night to figure out what channels should be called. And they worked on it nicely, but that's why I raced to do that, was just because like, not only for like, oh yeah, I get to be the guy who made the place that we hang out in, but also on top of that, like I was like, it'll make everybody laugh if it's called the Goomba Zone. Everybody will laugh at that name. I think it'll be a funny bit to bring that back. And of course, so I'm just racing for this bit, and I managed to get it off. And yeah, no. That's been the name of our group ever since. And we had a friend who we don't speak to anymore, but we had a friend who was in this group from very early on, like a few days after the server started.
Well, it was a couple months, but we were talking.
Well, it wasn't long after. Long after. Who, like, almost 2 years, I believe, into being in this group.
Like 2.5.
We go, yeah, you know, like those Coomer idiots, and he goes, Coomer? What's a Coomer? What's cooming? And it's like, you know, like cooming, like those people who like edge and like, you know, keep themselves on the edge of orgasm for a long time, and like goon, you know, because I think we were describing gooning at the time, but the word Coomer came up as like a synonym, and I was like, what? You don't know what cooming is? You don't know about Coomers? That's the hot new meme right now, and
or it was,
and he was like,
time.
It was at the time, yeah, and he goes, Boom, like Pumbaa. Is that why that's funny? And I go, well, I mean, that's part of it. I thought it was funny because Jed, like, just because Kumba is a funny word, but like, yeah, that's why most people laugh at it. Yes, and he goes, have I been walking around? Because at the time they had just introduced banners over your head where you could display like a guild, basically in VR chat. You could display like a guild name over your head of just like, hey, this is the group I'm affiliated with. And we had a Goomba Zone guild from like minute 1 when they introduced that feature. And so he goes, have I been walking around with a big sign over my head that says I like to fucking masturbate all day? Is that what you fucking put upon me? He didn't know. He's also just been repping the Goomba Zone. He had also been repping the Goomba Zone casually for a couple of years at that point. And he goes, I've gotten weird reactions off that name from people, and this puts it into context. And I think that is so fucking funny.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't realize that, but like that was a very funny moment of just like coming from that, of just cooming from that, if you will, of like how do you end up in this group for so long and never question it once? But
no, yeah, this server ended up becoming, you know, my most prized like communal area that I've ever done. And I'm so glad that like we have it. Because it's such an inner circle thing. I invited Twig to it recently, and Twig, if you're listening to this podcast, love you to death. And like some nights I regret adding Twig, not because Twig is a bad person, and not because Twig is like annoying or whatever, but because Twig is like, because it's like, oh man, this is like for my innermost of inner circles. This is for like the group of people that I share my life with practically. You know, all of these people who could make it were at my wedding. 5 of them could, like 4 of them could make it, and like the other like 2 or 3 couldn't, like physically couldn't have done it, like financially, you know, or they would have been there,
or
you
other
know,
issues.
and so like that's what became of it, was just like, you know, that's like every time someone new is added, I shake just a little bit of just like, oh god. You know, because like there are some friends of friends in there. There are some people that never show back up. They're not necessarily gonna get kicked. I'm not gonna kick anybody from the server simply for inactivity. But you know, I consider it every now and again. I look over and I see folks who like showed up one time 3 years ago, and it's like, do we trust this person from one time 3 years ago with all the things that we've said in these text chats? You know, not that we're saying anything deplorable, but we've put like, you know, we play little dangerous games like putting our social security numbers in, but like only a couple numbers off, like as a bit.
In our like main channel that has like 70% of everything we say in like our VC chat, I have like 70% of my genuine personal information as a pinned message, as a bit, from like a while ago, and like the only ones that aren't there is like joking credit card information and social security, but they are very close. And like my address is like a couple letters off from my actual address. It's like there are people who, like, if you're getting invited to the Goomba Zone, it's like like fucking giving you all of my personal information practically. You
Yeah,
also get
no,
a fucking emoji of my face. So
you get some things for being in that server, and that's one of them. Is like that server has our faces in it. Not our addresses aren't in the server, barring Jed's, but our addresses aren't really in the server. But like our legal names are in some of the photos in the server, with just like a, you know, in like the I pretend I do not see kind of way for most of us, because we got a lot of trans folks. And like there are like, most of us know each other's addresses, you know.
yeah,
we are about
everybody's
as
address saved.
we're about as factually close. We've got our birth dates, like all the information you'd need to steal our identities. So that like security risk is like part of the reason that I never like when people get invited. But it's also because it's just like the group has such a flow, and I'm scared with like adding new people. Because there are some people in Willow who I've considered of just like maybe someday. Like I look at folks like Woolen, and I'm just like, maybe someday, you know, maybe, but I doubt it. You know, if I could go back, Twig probably wouldn't be in the server, frankly, just because if I had more time to think about it, I probably wouldn't have. But since then, Twig has proven to be a great addition to the server, mind you.
Yeah.
So I don't regret making that decision. I'm just saying that if I had to make that decision again, not knowing what I know now about how, like, yeah, Twig's been a good member of the Discord, that I would probably, personally, I would probably not make that call again. But, you know.
It was a very on a whim thing.
It was a very, like, I finally felt like it was my turn, because everybody else had done a friend of theirs, of just like, yeah, these are my friends, you know? And Twig at the time was going through it real bad and needed somewhere to be, and I was just like, you know what? This place has got me through enough. I'm willing to hand it off, and I'm not trying to pass Twig off like a charity case here or anything. But like, you know, that was why I did it. And if like under normal circumstances, Twig probably would not be in the server, but we're happy to have him. But that's my point. Is just that like it is a very tight knit, very small server, and I wouldn't dream of adding anybody to it at the moment.
Yeah, but like that's the Kumba Zone. So if you ever hear us refer to Kumba, I it's kind of just become normal for us to just say it. But like I have considered a couple times where it's like on stream when it's like, yeah, we're hanging out in the Kumba zone. And it's like, what the fuck is that? Is that a cult? Are you in a cult right now? What the fuck?
Yeah,
But
no,
like,
I don't know. I feel like that's an important story to tell. I'm glad we got to the origin of Kumba as well during that
yeah.
story, because that Discord is where a lot of our stories take place. Oh, we missed one from we were kind of telling these in a chronological order, but I'd like to jump back to right after we met a little bit,
Okay.
and right after our friend group was established and I'd brought you into the fold. I feel like there was a specific night where with Jazz and Chopper. So funnily enough, there's this Game Grumps bit, right? And they've talked about it before, the Game Grumps, where they're like, yeah, no, when we first brought Dan onto the show, we weren't quite sure about him, or like I wasn't quite sure about him, and then like I don't know if you know this story, but then they did like the Mario 2 episode, and they made a joke. Dan made a joke about like, why is Luigi like holding his overall straps like that? He's standing like an old timey mayor. Like, fine day for mayoring. Good heavens, you know. They were doing that bit, and he goes, "That's the bit where I knew everything was gonna be okay." And it's like I brought that bit up as a joke because one of my like ins for conversation was I would just sit in the corner, and they have these 3D pens in VR chat where you could just draw. So I would just draw up against a wall, and just fill in a wall while we talked, just to keep my hands busy. And partially just because somebody would look over every now and again and go, "Oh, look at that," you know. And that would be a little conversation starter. But I was like drawing, and I was drawing it as we were talking about it, but I was just like, you guys remember that Game Grumps bit? And we were talking about it. We all three of us very loudly went fucking fine day from airing and had a good laugh about it. And I remember that very fondly as a marker of just like everything as it was for the Grumps themselves. That bit transitioned and made like for me, Jazz and Chopper, just like yeah, we'll be fine. You know, we're still kind of in that awkward phase where it's like we don't know what we all have in common yet. You know?
Yeah.
And so it was just like yeah, this will be all right. You know, everything will turn out fine. It was a very at ease moment, and then you showed up and kind of changed the flow of things a little bit more in that direction. But that change was enough for me to like, you know, like kind of find my footing again. And you wanted to say something about that before I go forward?
Well, yeah, of just like at the time it was a lot of like you third wheeling. I suppose of like
and
Jazz
they would talk
Chopper
to me. Jazz would talk to me at least. Chopper wouldn't talk to me as often, but Jazz would talk to me at least. You know,
it was a lot of third wheeling.
Yeah, it was a lot of those two like cuddling on a bed in World, and me just kind of like hanging out, like basically in the cuck chair, just sitting in the cuck chair and like casually talking. You know,
and like I'm looking at this thing on Twitter. Can you believe this?
So, you know, I found this video about,
and then,
you know, this or that, and it's like, you know, and then you showed up, and I had somebody to talk to about those things who was more willing to engage with me on it.
Well, because we were both chuckle fucks in the corner. Like, we've been doing our Kevin Smith thing, but Jay and Silent Bob, in every scene they're in, they hardly interact with what's actually happening in the scene.
They're barely related to the main plot. They are just kind of like almost audience surrogate, but like played for a laugh. Where it's like these guys are giving running commentary on the events of the plot as they happen around them as well. Even when they're actively participating in like their own movies. But like for the most part, it becomes like a all right, we've done the main talk for a while now. We've done the main plot for a while now. Bring in Jay and Silent Bob and have them do like a bit about like Jay's cousin from Moscow or whatever, and then have them just like fuck off and go like smoke weed and break dance for the next like 10 minutes while we do more main plot, and then at the end have Silent Bob say something important that is kind of hinging on the main plot and is sometimes very important, like that scene in Chasing Amy, or that like thing that he does at the end of Clerks. But primarily their role in the story is to like view what's going on in the main plot while having their like very funny subplots and bits going on. And I feel like we
Yeah,
definitely fall into the Jay and Silent Bob school of
absolutely. Because
character
we
in
would have
terms
a
of how
few
we do lore
nights where it
things
was like,
and how we do like just interaction in general.
yeah, well, like this time specifically, very much so reminded me of it because we would have some nights where it's like, yeah, I was going through a lot, so we would have a lot of heart to heart conversations, like late at night when we're all sleep deprived. But otherwise, it's us sitting in the corner laughing at like a photo of like Michael Jackson throwing a brick, and it's like we would just laugh at the stupidest shit while they're like having a
Yeah.
moment over by the mirror, and it really solidified like what we do, of just like we just Vox and I have this, well, Vox more so than I, because I mainly run off of the energy of Vox. When I'm alone, I am the most quiet, stoic, robotic person, but I feed off of Vox's energy well, and Vox has the ability to, no matter what situation, make a joke. um and it's kind of a nice thing because like we've had a few times in the Discord where it's like, yeah, somebody is like, we're having a falling out with somebody, and like we're in the middle of the falling out happening, and then Vox and I will be like, Weird Al put out a new video, let's watch it and make like shitty jokes to like get our mind off of it, and we would, and it worked well, and we look like psychopaths, but we're doing well.
I've done a few
like
of those that have been real risky on topic because
Oh, yeah.
like I can't think of a specific one right now from this friend group, but I did have this one time where I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick. And from the bathroom, the acoustics in the house that I was in at the time were such that I could hear them talking in the main room through the vents. And like they were like, yeah, I don't know. My grandpa just passed, and I'm not really having a good one today. It's been real rough on me and real rough on the family, and I just, I'm working through it. I'll be fine. I don't want to keep anybody down, but it's just been on my mind is all. So if I'm a little off, that's why. And everybody was like, "Oh no, man, you're fine. Don't worry about it." And then it got quiet about the time I finished washing my hands and stepped out of the bathroom. And I come out, and having completely heard this whole conversation, I look at my friend from across the room, not the friend who was talking about this, but a different friend who happened to be, in the room, who happened to be perfectly where if I stepped out of the bathroom, I was like basically like when I rounded the corner, I was basically eye contact with him instantly. And I would go, like, I just went like, geez, you'd think somebody died. Why is it so quiet in here? And
Jesus.
It landed. Everybody laughed. It was good. It was fine. But as I was rounding that corner, I knew what I was about to do, and I knew that it's like, this might be
this could kill everybody.
This could absolutely be a ding on my friendships. Because like it's like in a risk versus reward scenario. This is how my fucked up mind works, by the way. I risk versus rewarded this bit of just like, okay, if I don't land this thing, what happens? Everybody's mad at me, but I can probably apologize for how fucked up it was, But if I don't land, or if I do land this thing, what happens? The mood is immediately brought back up. Everybody's like down to clown again, and we don't have to deal with the awkward silence that follows of just like, well, I'm not gonna talk about the new album that I listened to the other night if like we're mourning this guy's grandpa with him, And so like there needs to be a transition, and I was just like, that transition is either going to be a laugh or anger. Let's go,
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Along the way.
Yeah, and I do those pretty frequently, honestly, probably more than I should, because I do use humor to cope on a certain level, and I find that like social scenarios are difficult, but humor is pretty universal. Just about everybody, if the joke is actually funny, no matter the circumstance, if you make a joke funny enough, people will laugh and you'll be able to get away with it,
Yeah, and in time, I've picked up that with Vox, and it can kind of be to our detriment. But like we do end up doing it, and it most of the time lands as a duo act. It actually, I find that it lands better.
I find it lands better because you're not one guy. It's easier to get. I don't think it lands more as much as it just like it's easier to get started when there's somebody in the room on your side on this thing. You know? When it's like, I think that like, geez, who died bit would be easier to do if if like I knew somebody else in the room was also thinking of doing that bit. Whereas like with me and you, I know there's always someone in the room who's thinking it and not saying it, you know?
Vox and I will have like a fucking like we share a brain, and it's really just who's willing to say it at the time. Because there are some times where it's like we lose the contest or the like coin flip of
You lose
inhibition
the coin
control,
toss, yeah.
and it's
And
just
it's like
huh. Somebody just was talking about how like upset they are and how like close to suicide they are. I could talk about like this funny thing that Saul Goodman said and like pull it around, and both of us think it, and then it's really just whoever says it first or whoever loses it, you know.
yeah.
And
No, it's absolutely that.
like not it's not just for humor either. We kind of have it with like everything. Like we'll often get into situations where it's like especially in VR chat, where it's like we're hanging out with this new guy, he's fine, everybody else seems like they're enjoying his company, and then Vox and I will like give each other a look, and Vox or I will walk away, and we'll come up, and it'll be like, hey, why'd you walk away, you doing all right? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm just kind of annoyed by this person. And it's like, yeah, me too.
And then we would be able to just sit out of earshot and be like, dude, I find this person so irritating. And I've had that look with you, and sometimes I have it with other people in the group, and it's like, why is nobody saying anything? You know? It's like, I don't know. Maybe this is like my most toxic trait, I feel. This is the worst trait about me as a human being. If I meet you and you make a bad first impression on me, in that, like, or if I meet you, right, and I deduce that you do not have a decent sense of humor, whether that be like you make jokes that are a little out of line and not fucking cool, or you don't make jokes at all. The secondary one I can tolerate, but if you're very like serious and stoic, I am typically very against that. I don't have anything against you as a person. I simply will choose not to hang out with you. If I don't find you funny, then like, because I don't know, being funny is everything to me as a person. It's not everything I am, but it's everything I seek to be, if that makes sense. Like that is my area. That is where I live.
Vox's final form is a sitcom. Like, he's gonna become a sitcom.
I'm going to become a walking sitcom. It's gonna be great. But that's what I'm saying, is just that, like, I don't care what the scenario is, I'm able to joke about it, and within reason. I'm not going to joke about your dead grandparents if I don't know you like that. Of course, those were my very close friends, and those kinds of jokes only leave my mouth around very close friends, or like even like make it into the thought of my head at all. It's just like, there is a time and a place, and I can understand that beyond just being funny. Being respectful is far more important. But, making jokes appropriately is still part of making jokes, and you need to like I still pride myself on it. And it's still something that I like. But like something I see in other people a lot is that, like, oh, this guy doesn't have a sense of humor that's, either does not align with mine on a moral level, or does not align, period. It just like isn't really there. It's not in their nature. Then it's just like, I'm not that interested in continuing to be your friend, Yeah. And I have friends who are like that. I do end up making decent friends with people who are like that through like common interests or things like that. It's just that my biggest common interest in the whole world is making people laugh. And so that's, anyway.
And I think that's why we work so well, is because I when I was younger, I had a lot of mental issues and a lot of trauma.
Mental issues.
And that issues, a lot of trauma that led me into being almost a chameleon for situations, of just like, I'll roll with pretty much anything that happens, and that included my personality. So my personality would adjust to each individual, situation that I'm in. And as I've gotten older and my mental health has gotten better, it's settled into closer to Vox's personality, which, oh Jesus Christ, I wish it didn't. I'm making a joke, of course, but like, we work well because my personality kind of formed around yours. So we kind of, we've become pieces to a puzzle, and that puzzle being an act, I suppose. And
Right.
I think that's a very interesting thing, because there are a lot of people who can't adapt in that way, and it partially comes from a like a lack of self-respect for myself, because a lot of the early bits was you fucking ragging on me. But
Yeah, we can talk about that too. Okay, so I
yeah,
realized very early on that Jed had low self-esteem. I realized that was Jed's biggest flaw, and my
I
blood
still
in the
got it.
water joke instinct was play on that. Play on that in an effort to show him that like your flaws are something to laugh about. There's something to you know
Your flaws are worthless. Laugh
no,
at
no, no,
them.
no, no, no. Your flaws are
Yeah.
something to laugh about because, it's fun to laugh at the idea that somebody else could get upset at you for like having a pear-shaped head or being or being
You can't have a
particularly
pear-shaped head.
monotone. No.
Fuck you.
But no, or like being particularly monotone, or having one of your eyebrows slightly out of line with the other. That's not a real one. Don't go measuring yourself in the mirror. But like, the idea that like somebody would notice those minutia about you and be that like, gallful to like say something about it, is such a funny idea. And I think, if you can get somebody laughing at said concept of just like, yeah, it is laughable that somebody would make fun of me for this. Eventually they'll internalize that as like, as a confidence booster, and that's where that comes
That's
from a
not
lot of
how
the
that
time.
works for me.
That's where that comes from a lot of the time. That was my thought process. But we did this bit over months, and there was one point, I will admit, where you like pulled aside and were like, hey, you know, we're going a little
Kind of a
far here.
lot.
I'm kind of going through it, and it's kind of a lot. It's like every other joke. Can we back it out a little bit? And I was like, yeah, no problem, I will. And I did back up a little bit, but I stayed about the same overall. And so we eventually met this guy named Zeta in VR, who was not our friend, who came to the friend group late, in like a March or an April, I believe, of
Yeah.
after the January that the Discord was established. So this is
So this
like
is
everybody's
4 months
settled
in.
in, you know?
Yeah.
And Zeta was a fine person. Like, they were kind of
Yeah, they're
annoying and they were
fine.
kind of grating on a personal level, but like as a person, they were all right. I don't wish to disparage them in any way, you know? But
They
one of the
occasionally
annoying
watch your
things.
streams, so if you're watching this, Zeta, hi.
Hi, Zeta. But one of the annoying things that they would do, we're airing our dirty laundry about you. I'm sure that there are a million guys. That's why I don't mind saying these like online pseudonyms, because it's like,
Yeah.
imagine finding the Zeta. I'm not saying their full username. Or like, imagine finding like the Chopper, or like
Yeah.
finding, so and so or so and so. So I don't mind in a lot of cases saying these names from years ago, because it was years ago. Who the hell is still mad about this, even if they
Yeah,
see it?
exactly.
But Zeta would, when I would be like having a joke, what I would thought would be having a joke with Jed, but was kind of just having a joke at Jed's expense in the end.
Mm.
Zeta would do it too, and then Jed would bring it up to me of just like, I don't like it when Zeta does it, especially because it's like, Zeta's new here. Zeta's first introduction to me was doing this kind of shit, and he doesn't have the same rapport that we do, so I have less tolerance to put up with it. And from then on, when I would see Zeta do that kind of thing in the background, I would go, oh, that's me. That's what I'm doing. That's almost word for word what I'm doing. But because it's someone unfamiliar, like this trait that I have in isolation is really bad. It's just the rest of me kind of makes up for it, is why people put up with it.
Mhm.
I should do something about that. And so I did. I tried. And I got better ish. But
Ish. Yeah.
like it was Zeta doing it that made me realize like, oh, that's what's going on here,
Yeah.
and so that kind of put that to bed pretty soon, so
Yeah.
we're still mean to Jed sometimes. We're still mean to Jed for the funnies, but I like, we've opened that door of like, Jed can give it back all he wants, he's just choosing not to.
I have a real hard time with insulting anybody, even jokingly, unless it's like the most outlandish, like absurd bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Vox sometimes will hit pretty close to home, but He'll tread that line. But like that was a moment we had of just like figuring out our do's and don'ts via like we don't like Vox and I particularly don't really have like a boundaries thing. Like we don't really set boundaries with people because it's kind of like, yeah, I'll be fine. Like there's nothing you can do or say that would make me like
There's something you can do or say outside the normal bounds of conversation. My boundaries are like, don't be discriminatory at me, and don't
be racist
don't be racist, don't be sexist, don't be a Nazi, don't be, don't be a sexual offender of any kind. Like these are rules that society puts in place so I don't have to. Like and I shouldn't like these should go without saying, and if they don't, you shouldn't be speaking to me to begin with,
Like, those are our boundaries.
Why are you roaming the streets?
And so, like, because we both have this idea of just like, yeah, even if they say something that does upset me, I'll deal with it. It's not that big of a deal. I don't care that much. As long as it doesn't become a persistent thing, it'll be fine. And so we both kind of did that. And when you're both new to a friendship and you're both like that, it's a lot of like running into brick walls over and over and over again until the brick walls either break or you finally learn to walk around them, Yeah,
it's a lot of that and a lot of I learned over time that the little things should be talked about when they happen. It should definitely be mentioned to a person when you have a squabble about something. It should be hashed out then and there, full force. It should be put out there and dealt with immediately. Because what's gonna happen, at least to me, if I don't squash whatever like issue I'm having immediately, no matter how small, of just like, oh, they said my name wrong that one time. I hold on to that kind of thing, and I don't notice that I do until like 6 months later. I'm like, here is an itemized list of every grievance I have ever had with you. Take it.
Yeah, I don't get that. And like talking about it doesn't normally help because my grievances are either fix it or I'm gonna have to deal with it.
Right.
Just like I'm gonna have to figure it out on my own. But yeah.
But like the grievance thing, I learned like very quickly, like into like being an adult is like that's a very childish way to handle things. If you've got a problem enough that you think it should ever be brought up, like if it bothers you for even more than like 5 minutes past is my rule. If it was more than 5 minutes ago and you're still thinking about it, you should say something. You should get a hold of them privately and you should say something just real quick as like a knock knock, hey, and that's a personal growth thing. That's what today's episode is about like personal stories and just like, because like, mind you, a lot of these stories are from years ago. And so, like we've grown a lot as people and I do want to go back, though, to all those years ago, because you fucking stopped me from doing that earlier. Please let me tell this story. I'm begging you. Yes, because I've tried to tell this story, like, twice now, and you've
Go ahead.
You've brought it around to something completely different. I've made a 1 bullet point dent in my list. I know how you feel every other week that isn't this week.
Yeah.
But, no, yeah, there was this time, we were all hanging out shortly after the formation of the Discord. Everything was fine. Or no, I think this is before. This is well before. This is before by like a week. This is before the Discord by like a week. So we're still in December 2020. And we're all hanging out. Me, Jed, Jazz, and Chopper, the 4 of us, we're all hanging out. And we're doing our usual thing where me and Jed will riff in the corner. And I had been watching HLVRAI recently. And I had seen the parts that were out at the time. I don't think all of it was out at the time, edited, but the unedited parts were out. And I had seen clips that people were posting on Twitter of, because it was very big at the time, and I was seeing clips that people were posting on Twitter of, like, the live segments, and somebody posted, like, the entire G-Man sequence, where, like, the gag is Gordon shows up, and then they have an argument about whether Chuck E. Cheese is a restaurant or an entertainment center. And Jed didn't know that this was from anything when I brought it up to him. I didn't mention that part. I just thought it would be a fun conversation to have.
I had to find that out on my own.
Yeah, no, I let Jed find that out by watching Half-Life VRAI, which is a fantastically funny series to this day. I'm sure it holds up. Go watch it. But I was like, hey, Jed, knowing that Jed is easily goaded into stupid arguments. Hey, Jed, Do you think Chuck E. Cheese is a restaurant or an entertainment center?
This was day 2 of us meeting.
Yeah. Oh no. Then yeah, this was
meeting
like
back up.
this was in December then. Yeah.
Yeah, this is December 30th.
Yeah. No. And we were hanging out, and you were like, "It's an entertainment center, obviously, because they've got an arcade.
The restaurant is shitty.
Because they've got an arcade. Everybody knows the pizza is shitty, and like restaurants typically aren't rented out in their entirety like entertainment facilities are. You know, like you wouldn't rent out an entire Applebee's for your kid's birthday, but you would potentially rent out like a Chuck E. Cheese, and that's the difference maker, is that one is an entertainment center and one is a restaurant. And Jed made some pretty salient points. Okay, so I think the linchpin is that it's both. I think the linchpin is that it's both.
Degree, yeah.
Like that's the answer, is that it is both a restaurant and entertainment center. By percentage, yes, but it is both is the thing.
Yeah.
But like we started I explicitly set out during this argument of just like, you can't say it's both. You're not allowed to say it's both. And Jez and Chopper chimed in very briefly of just like, I think it's a restaurant, or I think it's an entertainment center, and you know, here's why. And they would add flame to this fire that me and Jed had going, where they were pretty much all done with it in 5 minutes, and we were still going in 10 minutes about square footage and like sizes of pizzas that they sell, slogans that they had in like the 90s.
Called in friends.
Yeah, I intentionally, because like once I noticed that, like, all right, Jazz and Chopper aren't engaging with this bit we're doing anymore. As much fun as I'm having, and as much as entertained as I am personally by doing this, I need somebody to see this shit. I think the next evolution of this bit, because that's where my head is at constantly, is just how do I do this bit funnier? How do I evolve it? Where can it go? So I was like, here's where it can go. We got a friend group. I have a friend online, who. But I have a friend online currently on my friends list who will bring his friends along, and we will have a spectator sport argument if I manage to get these people in here. So I sent him an invite, and I was like, you know what, Jed? Fine. We're going to keep arguing about this, but I'm bringing in backup. I'm bringing in an unbiased third party. And I did, because I didn't know if they were going to agree with me or not. Genuinely. Because like, I knew it was not going to be just this one friend, but this friend and their entourage. And that stoked it even more. And so we went on for like, I can't stress enough that this was like 30 minutes of the night was arguing about this.
Vox had chose the intentionally dense side of saying it's a restaurant and only a restaurant. And like Vox knew going into it that,
when the options are literally just literally just a restaurant or literally just an entertainment center, I think entertainment center is the better descriptor for it on a personal, like personally, I think entertainment center is the better descriptor for it, because entertainment centers can serve food first of all. Like that's the prime thing. But I intentionally chose the restaurant side. Okay, so my plan going into this bit was see what side Jed takes and take the other side. Jed took the more easily defensible side, and so I had to fight for my life, which I'm good at and I love doing. And so like I take this restaurant side of this argument, and I'm arguing with Jed about it. And this is a 40-minute argument about square footage of restaurant, the inception of the business. Do the animatronic band count as part of the entertainment, you know? And entertainment center portion of the building, or what, you know, because they're kind of in like the dining area, and we had like a bunch of conversations about this, like it densed into this one argument, and then long after the fact, Jed was like, yeah, no, remember the Chuck E. Cheese argument? And I was like, yeah, no, I still think it's an entertainment center. And you were like, what? And I went, no, it's an entertainment center. And you went, no, you said it was a restaurant during the argument. You were fighting tooth and nail with me that it was a restaurant all that time ago. And I was like, yeah, no, it was like 6 months ago. I don't remember what side of this thing I was on. And he goes, you don't remember? You cared so little that you don't remember? And I was like, Jed, I gotta let you know, I don't really care about this argument even a little bit. I don't really give a shit one way or the other the way that argument went. I gave a shit that it was a funny bit and entertained us and the people around us for a good 30 minutes. And you were like, you seemed genuinely like upset, betrayed, and dejected about this realization that like I couldn't give less of a fuck about the Chuck E. Cheese argument in full sincerity.
Well, because like this was really early on into our friendship, and I still do. I would say that I play the straight man more times than not with you. Um, and it's gotten more evened out over the years, but like early on, I played the straight man because I didn't know you were doing a bit. I thought you were fucking dumb.
That's the best straight man, is the one who doesn't know he's playing the straight man, who's playing the straight man because that's what they are. You know, they're the
Yeah.
idea of the straight man in comedy, for those unaware somehow, for those with like a gap in their comedic knowledge, the funny guy is typically the person who will be making the jokes and saying ridiculous things. But if every character on the screen is just saying ridiculous things without, any grounding, it's not as funny as if you take a normal actual guy from like, the real world basically, and stick him in there and have him go, no, what do you mean a jelly bean and pickle sandwich? Back that up for a minute. Back that shit up right now. You explain to me why you want this, because that is a fucked up combination of foods, and I think everybody in their right mind knows that. And so that's basically what the straight man is just someone who is there to observe the chaos and show the audience that, like, no, that isn't just how this world is. That's just this guy,
Yeah.
And so Jed played a good foil, or Jed played a good straight man to my foil.
I'd say I still do.
And you do. It's just that, again, our roles are kind of interchangeable these days, and that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
But, because I enjoy playing both sides. But at the time, Jed had no idea. I thought they did, right? Because
I didn't.
See, because imagine with me, if you will. Someone runs into a room trying to like escape you, and there is an open window that they could, like, on a first story where they can climb out and run. But instead, they choose to stand stock still, making themselves as thin as possible behind a very tall lamp. Do you honestly believe they thought that was the best way to hide? No, it was funny.
Several times.
It was a good bit. Like, that was my intention, and I thought it was obvious to those around me that I'm joking. And I found out very quickly, like, upon like having any self-reflective conversation with friends via like brain picking and other things, that it's like, I'm not an easy person to read. People don't know when I'm just kidding around, because I'm always just kidding around. I am in a constant state of kidding around unless I'm deadly serious about something, which is very rare. Yeah. But like, I'm always kidding around, and so people's like barometer for that kind of thing, like, when you hear one thing that I say, I'm sure, like, in isolation, you go, "Oh, I'm sure he's just kidding."
Have absurd stories too, so like that also.
I have some absurd real stories, and I think that makes it funnier. I think that makes the absurd stories that I come up with funnier, because it's like, no, yeah, that's believable by my standard, Yeah. Because I've said, because nobody questions when I'm like, oh no, yeah, I had this guy in middle school, and we called him Toenail Boy because he fucking like chewed his fucking toenail off and had to wear like a fucking bandage around it for like 6 months. Nobody questions when I say something like that, typically, because that's the one example that sticks out to me, because that's the one time anybody did call me on it and go, no, you're fucking around, like, just outright ended the bit fully. Ended the bit fully. Because, like, that was a time where I was just spinning a yarn to see how long it would take, and so I was inevitably going to get called on it. But, like, 9 times out of 10, people don't question when I say things like, asking what a child on a farm does for fun, and he goes, throw rocks at Michael, and Michael is, like, the elderly horse they have roaming the property. People don't question me when I say things like that, because I have receipts. I could, like, go on Google Maps and take you to the address of the farm and probably show you Michael. And that's the thing. That's the thing, is like, nobody questions when I say shit like that, because I have enough backup on most of the, like, 80% of it is bullshit. Yeah. But the 20% that's not is almost more stranger than fiction, where it's like, that 20% is true, so there's just no clear line.
We don't have to go into this, but Vox's father passed away in a very extravagant and absurd,
funny.
Always Sunny bit of how he died. And
it's so funny to me.
Told us, I laughed out loud and went, okay, come on, is he actually dead? And you were like, yeah, that's how he died. And it was like, Oh my god!
Okay, so let me tell the story for you, dear viewer. Because
Yeah.
again, this is a very
I wanted to
Vox
leave this
centric
to
story
you.
that I think is very funny. So, I believe this was 2002.
Mhm.
No. This is 2001. This is 2001. Shortly after I was born. I was born in July, and this is Thanksgiving, the night before Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving Eve, in 2001. And my grandma is sitting on the couch, and she's like, "Hey, you know, it's," and my dad walks by, who is like 17, 18 at the time. Um, no. Yeah, no, he's like 17, 18 at the time. And he goes, "Oh well, yeah, I'll put a little something on the fire for you. I'll get a fire going for you." And she goes, "Oh, thank you," because they're waiting on the turkey because they wanted to get the turkey done the night before, but they started at like 8, 9 p.m. And if you know how long a turkey takes, that's too late to begin cooking a turkey. You're gonna be up until the early hours of the morning waiting on this fucking turkey to be done. And so they wanted it done the night before, and they were just gonna like reheat it in the oven a little bit the next day and call it done. And so she was up, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll get a fire going for you." And she goes, "Thanks." And she goes to go check on the turkey, so she's well out of sight, well out of the line of fire, haha. And he puts a couple logs on the fire, maybe some nice like cedar wood or something, I don't know. And then he takes a gas can from nearby that was like near the fireplace for some reason already, and like he like just kind of like lights the fire, and then after he's lit the fire, this probably wouldn't have been nearly as dangerous if he put a little bit of gas on the wood and then waited a second and then lit it. It might not have been as bad, but he waited until the fire was lit, and then he took gasoline out of this can and he just like spritzed a little on there. Like he like opened this like gas can and just sort of like sloshed it out onto the fire a little bit, and the flame goes up, obviously, because you've just doused it in gasoline.
Don't pour lighter fluid on an open flame. You will create a bomb.
Yeah,
anyway.
no. So the gasoline causes the flame to explode out from the fireplace. So he is just first, whatever the worst one is. It's third, right? Is the worst burns that you can get. He's got third-degree burns. He's got third, and I assume even fourth-degree burns, because he had to get a lot of skin grafts done. He's got third and fourth-degree burns all over the front of him. Assumedly the back of him, too, because he was standing dead in front of the fireplace when it fucking exploded out at him. The house catches, and nobody else is awake. They wake everybody else up. Little baby me, is in his crib, right? And my dad runs out. Like he runs out to the lawn. He like puts himself out. He does a little stop, drop, and roll, which I'm always afraid I'll forget. Stop, drop, and roll somehow. They make it seem like it's my dad's death seemed very plausible to me. You know why it seemed very plausible to me? Like someone burning to death seemed so regular because the school system entrusted me with fire safety rules so early. Like I don't know how your school system was with it, Jed, but every year from like kindergarten to like 5th or 6th grade, we got the like, listen, if you ever find yourself in a scenario where there's a fire, here's what you do. If you find yourself in a scenario where you're on fire, stop, drop, and roll on like the nearest like patch of grass, which is a safe thing here because we don't have dry brush here. It's all like what? No, it's all a little bit damp.
Catch a fucking forest on fire.
It's a little bit damp at all times, so like there's just this light damp grass outside that you could just fucking roll yourself on to get out real quick. But like he does a stop, drop, and roll, and I tell people my dad died in a fire. Which is because that's a funny way to put it. The real way he died was in the hospital, like a year later of all times. But a year later, he dies after several skin grafts. This is like such an awful way to go, by the way. After like having nearly been burned alive, having like severe skin damage to the point where you're getting skin grafts and you can't leave the hospital for like a year, by the way. He's alive for about a year. It's like 8 months, I believe, was the amount of time. And then he goes to the bathroom in the bedpan that he has because obviously he's bedridden. Because, fresh surgeries and healing burn wounds are not something that you want to be walking around on. And he goes in the bedpan, and the nurse on duty, for whatever reason, just neglects to do anything about it for, like, a good 6 hours. He's just sitting there, sleeping in a puddle of his own piss, for like 6 hours, and obviously he's got like burns and like exposed flesh. So he's fucking like, for you and me, sitting in a puddle of our own piss might as well be a picnic. For a guy with no skin on his crotch, you know, sitting in a puddle of your own piss is surefire dysentery. This man died of fucking dysentery due to like medical neglect. Nothing was ever done about it, by the way. Nobody ever got sued.
Yeah,
Nobody ever saw.
That
We were very poor. That is why that didn't happen. That's what I'll tell you. But nothing ever happened with that. And I think it's very funny to say that my father like died in a house fire, but it's also funnier to say that he died of dysentery because like a year after said house fire. So like nowadays what I like to tell people is that he was in a like, how did he die? He was in a house fire. It's like, oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. Burning to death is like a horrific way to go. No, he died of dysentery. You know?
Yeah.
I think that's a funny way to tell that story. Anyway, I just spent 10 minutes talking about my dead dad.
Yeah. Well, because like for a long time, like when
that was a running bit,
I laughed, and then from then on, it would be like I would play a game and I would find a campfire and I'd like snicker and go like, "Vox, tune into the stream. I found your dad." And it's like that was the bit.
Yeah,
he didn't even die of like burning to death. Is like why are you?
Yeah, it's funny that it's incorrect too. Fire. Yeah,
yeah.
But like the thing about it was that like that was one of those things where it's like I don't know. I never knew the guy. You know, he died before I could form a memory, and so like I have no lasting imprint of this individual, so I have no sentimental value. This might as well be a stranger who died in a house fire all that time ago. But he's my dad, which makes it okay to joke about.
That became such like a reoccurring bit for us that I genuinely forgot that it wasn't normal to laugh at it until we were like around. It was somebody new. It was somebody new that we didn't know that was introduced from like a friend of a friend. It was Cadence, yeah. And we get to a point and God, I can't remember. We were talking about something and you were talking about how my dad was abusive. Because my dad is abusive. That's the end of the story.
I went like, you know, oh, well, you know, your dad wasn't the greatest, you know, like as like an offhand reference. Because we joke about that too at Jed's permission. But, you know, and then he goes, well, at least my dad didn't die in a fucking fire. And he started laughing. Yeah. And Cadence goes, oh, I think that's fucked up. You can't just say that. And I was like, I had to like, because Cadence was ready to like throw down about like, hey, that's real fucked up, dude. Like, they were clearly upset by it. And I was like, no. Listen, I said it was okay. We've been joking about this for years. It's all right. You know? Which is a conversation I'm used to having with people of just like, hey, I joke about this. You're allowed to joke about that. It's a safe area. It's, you know, it's all fun and games. You know, I'm sure the guy would be happy to know that, like, at least his death brings some minor joy to people, you know, all this time later. You know? Like, at least some people can have a good laugh about him, you know? Because that's how I want to go, in a way where people are making a joke of my death, you know, years later. I think I'm actually pretty unique in that way. Now that I think about it, I don't think most people consider that an honor of any kind. But like, you know, that's a conversation I'm used to having with people where it's like, no, it's okay. This is a bit we do. It's fine, you know. And they were like, but did he really? And I'm like, yes, he really did. But you know. Well, no, but he died of dysentery later. Anyway, and I would tell them that story and I'd go, but yes, he really did die, and it really was because of a house fire. So that is the bit, you know? And they were like, oh, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that, was basically how that conversation went. And I was like, that's fine. That's okay. You don't have to be comfortable with it. We'll refrain from making those jokes around you. That's fine. You know? It's not like it comes up every 5 minutes. It just happened to come up. In fact, that was the first time in a while it had been brought up.
Yeah. It's like, that'll happen sometimes, though, where, like, you'll riff on my family, and then I'll riff on your family for, like, both, like, abhorrent things that are really terrible, and then, like, some, like, horrified onlooker of, like, an acquaintance of ours, or even a friend who just hasn't been around for those jokes, will just be like, what, did you just, were you just laughing at the fact that he was beat by his father? What the fuck?
Yeah, because it's funny. It's funny because he's laughing at it. You know, it's funny that I can go to laugh out of you about that. Oh gosh, hiccups. But no, yeah. But we had a moment in VR chat once that I want to talk about as well. These are very VR chat centric stories so far. But
that's where we spent most of our time for the first 2 years.
Yeah. But we had a moment where you were like, yeah, I'd consider you my best friend. And I was like, dude, that's sad. And I didn't say it back because like I didn't
It's like
consider you my best friend
7 months
yet.
in.
Yeah, I didn't consider you my best friend yet. But, every day just about for 7 months, makes a friendship, I suppose. I just I didn't
Mhm.
consider you my best friend, because I didn't know that, like, because, like, there are qualifications for being my best friend of just, like, you gotta be somebody who can have my back. You gotta be somebody whose back I can reliably have,
Mhm.
when they need me and when I need them. And it's like, I don't know if I'd make that call for Jed 7 months into our friendship, but it became such a thing that it was like, all right, yeah, I'm Jed's best friend, I guess, and I know Jed's my best friend, or like I'm Jed's best friend, I know that, and now I know that Jed is my best friend as well, like it's mutual, and we've kind of just been in that state for a while. We talked
And
about it
like,
again once I made that realization,
I think
and I thought that was a very nice
you
pivotal moment we had.
yeah, I think you had admitted though that like that first time I told you, you were like, "Yeah, I think you're right, but it's sad for me to say it, so I'm not going to."
Yeah, because it is kind of
Uh,
sad to go like, yeah, you're my best friend, dude, over like like saying phrases like that in VR only like for some people they only say those things because they're very immersed. For me, saying those things kills the immersion immediately. I become
yeah,
hyper aware of the fact that I'm sitting alone in my living room in the dark at 6 a.m. wearing a fucking piece of plastic on my face. You know?
yeah, yeah,
Like it
and
just makes me very aware of that scenario.
it actually didn't get solidified. Like you didn't actually say it aloud until after I was the best man at your wedding. I was still sitting in this null space of like I'm replaceable, and
Well, no,
it
you're
was
not.
yeah.
And you weren't at the time. It's just like Jed's probably the best friend that I have. Best friend is a hell of a title, though, in my opinion. Um,
Mhm.
but that was just a realization I had at a certain stage. Speaking of the wedding, you want to talk about the wedding trip? You want to talk about the wedding trip at all? Before we talk about the
Sure.
wedding trip, as a lead-in, you want to talk about the
All
Wario
right.
Shuffle before we get to the wedding
No,
trip? Because that
I
feels like a good
hate the
lead-in.
Wario shuffle.
So a very long time ago, I was a part of this like search, this like Wario related search for a like a puppet that they used at like a 1996 to 1999 era. Like they used them during E3s, they used them during some MLB event. But anyway, there was this like clip of Wario speaking as this puppet, but it wasn't Charles Martinet. It was some guy doing a Jersey accent, and it's like why does Jersey Wario exist? What is this? And so I did a deep dive. I got like a rallying group behind me who were also interested in like this weird niche thing. And we had like a Discord server set up for it for finding evidence and contacting people of just like, okay, I talked to Charles Martinet. You go talk to this guy that he recommended, and then I'm gonna keep following this lead with him, and you talk to this guy just so like 80 people weren't messaging the same guy because all you're gonna get then is like a no, fuck off, stop bothering me.
Yeah.
And so it had to be an organized effort or no progress was gonna be made, and everybody acknowledged that, and I happened to get to lead that, which I think I'm pretty good at leading things. I think I'm pretty good at it all around. I don't know.
Hmm.
I didn't think I was, and I still don't think I'm very good at it. Like I don't put myself up for leadership positions, but when like I'm called to task for something like that, or like I find myself in that kind of a position, I do an all right job. But anyway, and I was talking to Jed about this thing, and it got brought up, and I was like, oh Jed, by the way, like I mentioned to Jed on his own that like, oh yeah, like while we were in this group still, everybody was still in the Discord call. This wasn't in VR chat, this was in a Discord call, and everybody was still there, and I go, yeah, Jed, I found this thing called the fucking Wario Shuffle. You won't believe this shit. Wario's got his own dedicated like little dance, dude. It's insane. And you're like, oh really? What the fuck? Where do you find that? And I'm
I
like, I'm
yeah.
not telling you. I don't want to tell you. I want to see if you can find it on your own. And or like I was like, I'm not gonna show you. You just get to know that there's a dance, and you don't get to know what it is. And I guarantee you won't find it because it's in like some old gaming magazine from the 90s, and it's completely unofficial.
I spent
And you were like, I'm gonna fucking
probably
find
50
it.
hours.
And you spent like that evening finding it with everybody else in call having a different conversation around you, and then you left for the night, and it was just me, Jez, YV, I think Chopper might have been there. Maybe it was that early.
A couple
I
of
don't
people
know.
who we don't
But
talk to.
either way, a group of folks were there, and I was like, "Hey, can I let you guys in on something?" Jazz and Wifey, most importantly, because they were at the wedding, which is where the story culminates. But I was like, "Hey, can I let you guys in on something?" And they go, "There is no Wario Shuffle, is there?" And I go, "No, there is no Wario Shuffle. It's not fucking real. That's what I was just about to tell you. There is no Wario Shuffle. There never has been a Wario Shuffle. I'm just spinning a yarn." It was one of those, like, I'm gonna spin a yarn and see if he gets it. And then I realized halfway through that, like, it'd be much funnier just to let you look for it because you seem very enthusiastic. And so I was like, I'm gonna let Jed look for a while until they, like, admit to me that they cannot find it. And then I'll tell them. But you never came to that conclusion.
Like, also, well, because everybody else went along with it from then on. Like,
because I got everybody else on it with me of just like, yeah, no, Jed's not gonna find the Wario Shuffle, you know. But everybody else seems to know it, you know.
Yeah, and I was like, I know more about Wario now, and like weird little niche things. Like, I remember sending you a few videos that were like, "Is this it?" And it's like some fucking like 10-year-old with a camcorder, like fucking just all this shit of just like some 7-year-old
It would be some shit like
in a mirror
from 2007 with a camcorder that was just like Super Wario Dance : DDDDD exclamation point exclamation point exclamation point dot MP4. And it's like, you would send me this like they would leave the .mp4 in the fucking name, and I'd click on it, and it would be like the lowest quality shitty video of a child dancing in their bedroom and doing an awful Wario impression. And it's like, no, Jed, no, this isn't it. But you were searching you were plumbing the fucking depths on that one. You were getting somewhere.
I know more about Wario than I think anybody does at this point.
And that's partially why I kept the bit going also, was for as long as I did, was because like Jed's actually finding some pretty funny stuff in his search for this. I'm just gonna keep letting him go, you know? And then the wedding, and then we're getting up on the wedding. It's coming around time, and you go, "So Vox, we're gonna physically be in the same place at the same time for like 4 days. You're gonna make time and show me the Wario Shuffle if I come to your wedding, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, I'll do it. I'll show you the Wario Shuffle if you come to my wedding." Because I was still in that denial phase where it's like, nobody's coming to this fucking thing. I'm gonna be doing this alone, you know? And so I was just like, "Yeah, sure, pal. If you come to my fucking wedding, I'll do it," you know? And you were the only one who was locked into going at the time, and you weren't even locked into going at the time because of the tickets and everything. But there was a whole thing. There was a whole thing there. Yeah, thanks. I didn't want to mention that part. But you know, I didn't want to mention that I was fucking flying a minor from like across the country to come like visit me. But like I say, I was flying as though I like paid for it when I totally didn't. I had nothing to do with it. You'd already elected that you were going.
Away from being an adult, but yeah.
Yeah, no, you were going to be an adult that summer. Officer, he was 17. He was almost 18. His 18th birthday was right around the corner. No, but what was I saying? Oh, right. No, I was like, "Sure, pal. I'll show you the Wario Shuffle at the wedding." And we get to the wedding, and we get to the Airbnb on the wedding trip on day 1. And I like, on day 1, I'm like, I have to come clean at some point. I have to tell him that there is no Wario Shuffle. But I had sat there, right? And I was just like, "Yeah, Jed." With everybody, I made sure I waited for a time where everybody was present and we were all sitting down doing nothing, just so that this like culmination of this bit could be central. Before the wedding, I was in a Discord call with Jazz and Wivey. As part of the incentive, I informed them of this conversation we had. Or no, I think they were there for it. But I keep forgetting a time where everybody was in the Discord consistently. But like, you had left for the night again because you were always fucking sleepy and still are to this day. But you know, they were like, "So the Wario Shuffle," and I was like, yeah, I gotta finish this thing. This thing's gotta be done. I either gotta mock up a Wario Shuffle or I gotta tell him. You know, I could mock up a Wario Shuffle and we could keep the bit going, or I could tell Jed that there is no Wario Shuffle. I could come clean. And they were like, "Yeah, you should just come clean." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I'm thinking." And so I waited for a moment where everybody was kind of just sitting around in the Airbnb doing nothing. And I was like, "Yeah, Jed, hey, I gotta come clean about something real quick." And you're like, "Yeah, what's up?" You were like, "This might be," you had that tone where you're like, "This could be serious or a joke. I'm not sure." And I was like, "I gotta come clean about something." there is no Wario Shuffle. And you were like, what the fuck? You were actually genuinely like mad at me for a moment. I was just like, why would you let me spend like 80 hours of my life searching the absolute dark underhalls of the internet trying to find this fucking thing on like gaming forums from 2004 when I had never had a chance of ever finding it because it exists in your fucking head. Like, it was such a funny moment.
I didn't care as much about the actual Wario Shuffle. I knew that if I found it, Vox would do it. And I wanted to see you humiliate yourself. So I was robbed of that after years, and I was like,
so that was your end game. Jed, you will not get me to do something that will humiliate me. First of all, I'm a very hard person to humiliate, but
yeah.
Second of all, don't say no you're not. Don't prime up like you're gonna say no you're not.
No, I was gonna say a no, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a very hard person to humiliate. If somebody says to commit to the bit and there's a group around, I'll commit to the bit. I'm not gonna drop out just because it's like, no, I don't want to be embarrassed, you know? I'm not the embarrassed kind when it comes to something might be really funny.
But it's something that everybody else will be like, ugh.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is like it would have been funny if I had done it, but I got to win, and it seems like I win most of these bits. I seem to get the outcome I want more than I don't, you know? But when I don't, it fails spectacularly because it's just like when I do a bit like that where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna like I was mentioning earlier where it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna spin a yarn until somebody notices, and then like at some point you'll go, really? Really? The guy cut his own fucking leg off? That's insane. And I go, yeah, no, he didn't. I made all this up. It's been hours. And you would just go, oh, you kind of just like, because I was getting sick. I'd get sick of like telling the story, and like the response would just be, oh, this would have been funny, but like or like an hour ago, but you've just kind of drag itself on, and you know, now I've just kind of been lying to you for a couple hours for no particular gain. It's like that Letterman clip. It's like that clip of Letterman on the Colbert Report where like he like leans over and he goes, so have you ever asked for anybody's autograph? And he just goes, yeah, God, who did he say? It was some skateboarder. Whose name I know, who I know of, I'm just forgetting off the top of my head. It was some skater or some rapper. Like someone from like a community that you wouldn't think Letterman is even kind of a fan of, at least enough to like break the like decorum involved in being a TV host and like ask for their autograph backstage. But like, you know, he was like, oh, this guy, and they go, really? Who is that guy? I don't know who that is. And nobody laughed in the audience. And he goes, really? That was your pick? And he goes, no, I wasn't. I lied. And then everybody fucking burst out laughing. And Stephen Colbert was like, I didn't know who that was. I was just going to let you keep going. And he was like, yeah, I thought I would say his name and people would think it was funny that I would want that guy. And
Phil Swift. He said,
oh, it's Phil Swift. Oh, no, it's the Flex Tape guy. And he's like, you know, he's the guy who like saws the boat in half. I thought people would find it funny that I asked for that guy's autograph because he's such like an inconsequential like meme figure, basically. I thought people would find it funny and nobody got it. So, you know, I lied. That's on me. I fabricated that. And he turned that like bit around into a very funny moment. And I've had that like moment memorized of just like, how can I do this without doing exactly this? How can I do this without just ripping this bit firsthand, you know? Because it's such a good bit. But like, you know, when those jokes land, they land very well and they land often. It's just when they don't land, I pay the price. Anyway, you want to talk about the wedding trip? You want to talk about the wedding trip a little bit?
Yeah, sure. The Atlanta airport is a mess, and I'm gonna be going back there in 3 days.
Yeah, the Atlanta airport fucking sucks. It fucking sucks. Actually, Jed,
it's actually pretty good. The Atlanta airport is pretty good.
If I really wanted to, I'm sure there's a Regency in Atlanta. I could spend the gas money because I have free Regency tickets. I could go and see a movie and line it up
for less than 2 hours. I would have to.
That's what I'm saying. As I could go and watch a movie, and then it would make it a 4-hour Atlanta trip, and then I could come and visit.
What I'm saying is that I don't think I would be able to get out of the airport and into your car to visit you I
You
would
wouldn't
then
want
have to
to.
go back through TSA, so it would literally be like 2 seconds. We would see each other for 2 seconds.
Just say hi. Come
But
on. Make time on the
I
way
mean, if
back
you
though.
want to,
Take a long ass layover. Take a long ass layover.
I'm not flying back. I'm driving back.
Oh right, you're
I'm
driving back.
sorry.
Anyway, whatever.
Do you want to meet me in like Missouri?
No,
We're
I'd
stopping
rather
in
not.
Missouri. No, but
But no, yeah.
like
The wedding trip. You want to talk
The
about the
other
airport
funny
and your
thing.
way in? Oh, we should talk about the bomb. We should talk about the
We'll talk
bomb.
about that. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later because there is.
We're not doing this in
first that I wanted to
chronological
say.
order.
No, well, because we've already passed it is the problem. So, like 4 days into us meeting, Vox and I are talking and we're shooting the shit, and we have the like typical every man goes through this.
Skipping
of, like,
to the end of the trip. Oh, no.
we're skipping way before this.
You said
where
4
we have the
days.
same-
You said 4 days,
4 days
into the trip.
after we met. Sorry, 4 days after we met. We were doing the like what I feel like every guy has gone through this at some point of like, could I fight X thing? And at this point, it was could I fight Vox? And like at this point,
after we met.
15.
Yeah, no.
I was 15. I was like 5'11". I was already an inch taller than Vox, and I was like a big enough dude. And I was like, yeah, I think I could beat Vox in a fight. Vox was like, yeah, I could beat you in a fight. I could easily beat you in a fight.
I saw your confidence. I saw your confidence, and I met it. I don't think either of us would ever fist fight each other. I don't see us ending up in that situation ever.
No.
But if we did, unless I take some like training, like I think if I got in shape, I'd have a decent shot. I think if I got in shape, like
I was in current shape, yeah.
Like I think if you were in your current shape, like, and I got like I took like 6 months of prep time to like go to the gym, you know. I think if we both got in shape. 6 months, I just said. I think 6 months prep time.
I just think that's a funny bit.
Enough to get a good like muscle mass going, and enough to like actually put that to practice. Which is what I want to do anyway. I want to get a gym membership, but I'm waiting till we move, and then I'm gonna get in shape. It's gonna be great. But you know, I think if we both got in shape, and learned fighting technique, I think if we learned proper fighting technique, I think in like 3 out of every 5 fighting styles, I think I could kick your ass. I think in 4 out of every 5 styles, not kick your ass, but I think I edge that fight out. I think I win.
I mean, maybe, but like if we're talking about a fight, I don't know if that's like I don't know. I put all I put all my points into fucking con and strength, dude. I got some good constitution, dude.
Yeah, street rules. I think you get me just on the tyranny of mass. I don't think it's a skill thing. Like I'm
no,
thinking like a skill-based fight here.
I can pick you up and throw you. Like,
yeah, I don't know. But like I don't know. Like, I still think I could potentially be wiry enough to win. I'm not saying there's no shot I ever get that, but I'm not saying I'm super confident in my abilities.
I think we already made this joke. 50th episode, we'll fight each other on camera.
We will fist fight like while doing the podcast. Did you see the new Mr. Beast video? No, it was pretty good. You know,
we're gonna have a big enough lawn space that like I'll make a robot version.
I'll get us some lav mics. I'll get us some lav mics, and we'll mic ourselves up so the audio is tolerable. It'll be great.
I'll just like we'll throw each other around, and it'll be.
We'll wear mascot heads, and it'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but like we. After that conversation, I was like, fine. You know what? Fuck it. If we ever meet, we're fighting, and then we'll see who actually wins. And Vox was like, all right, I'll do that. And this was like maybe a week into us genuinely talking,
where there was like no shot of this ever happening. and then we meet on the winning trip
there,
and it's just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
One of the first things I say is, so now I'm not only like a 17-year-old, like pretty much fully grown. I'm 6'4", big guy, can like pick up cars-esque things. Not genuinely, I'm making a joke, but like gorilla-esque person. And the first thing I say when I see Vox is like so about that fight.
No, that wasn't happening for more than one reason, right? It wasn't only because I was pretty sure I would lose because I had been, it wasn't my day, first of all. Like that day was not that it wasn't going well, but it's just like I'm not in peak condition right now. I've been in the car for like 4 or 5 hours. I haven't had an opportunity to stretch. You know, even if we got into a fight right now, I wouldn't like my heart wouldn't be in it. But second of all, you're my friend, and we are 5 minutes into like physically seeing each other. I don't want to fist fight you. Third, you are still a minor technically because you're not quite an adult yet, and I don't want to beat this. Like I don't want to beat on a minor even if I lose. You know. Yeah. Fourth reasoning, whether I win or lose this thing. I'm gonna get like bloodied up for it is the thing if we gave it our all. And I'm not trying to be like, I'm not like trying to have like a black eye in my wedding photos. I'm not trying to have like a bruised up face in my wedding photos. So we'd have to put in some stipulation like only body shots or something. And it's like, that's at that point, you know.
No, but like either way, it was a funny bit. Because like also you would.
We should do one of those slap fights though. Those are like competitive slap fights where you get like the biggest guy in the world and like the smallest guy in the world, and you just have the big guy like slap the shit out of him. It'd be great.
See, because here's the thing. I've talked about this before. I think that the reason that you might like, I think that if I was like you, I would have a good shot at winning almost every time. I've got hella inhibition. You don't. You would be more than willing to beat the shit out of me if I said, yeah, it would be funny. I can't even like say
absolutely.
Somebody smells
See,
bad.
the thing about me is I fight dirty, right? Because I'm not a good fighter. So I have to. That's my way of leveling the playing field for myself, especially against someone so large. If I was like, hey Jed, you want to do a fist fight? And you were like, and you agreed to it, you would be like, fist would be like coming at your face. I don't know if I'd manage to make contact. Because, again, you would be looking right at me. But I'd be going in for a sucker punch before you could get the words out. It would be on instantly. Because it's like, we're both consenting adults. Get them. Yeah. You know?
I've got, like, hella inhibition, though. And, like, I won't hurt people.
Yeah, because you're a coward. And you're like, I don't want to fight my friend.
Well, because here's the thing. Is that I learned this from a very young age. That I
have empathy.
No, I am like I am larger than everybody else, and I have to be careful with it because it was like you're in kindergarten, and it's like this kid is like the size of a 5th grader, dude. Who the fuck? Who let this? Who is here? Why are you here? But like I had to deal with that, and later on in my life, it was in middle school, and my friend had gotten into boxing, and he was like, "We should fight. Like let's fight." And I was like, "Okay." And I kind of, I played the fight. I didn't genuinely hit them. And he kept like gloating when he would win because I wasn't throwing very hard punches. And I was like, I'm fucking sick of it. You want me to genuinely
a fucking Spider-Man moment?
Yeah. And I was like, you want me to genuinely throw a punch? He was like, yeah, come on. And I hit him once in the stomach and he loses all the air in his like lungs. And he just like falls to the ground, and everybody around me is like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" It was like, I can't win.
He told me to.
I didn't do it dirty. I didn't do it dirty either. He got like 3 good hits on me, and then I finally took a swing, and it was like, dude, I can't win. And so like that's kind of one of the things of just like I just have an unfair advantage. So I don't want to hurt people, but also if I'm in a fight and I don't want to genuinely hurt them, I won't hit them like at all because it's just something that I can't control. And I find that a very, very funny thing of just like, if you were in my body, I think you would beat the shit out of anybody and everybody, you know?
Oh, I would totally be down to clown. Are you serious? Like, nobody would know any peace the moment shit was started. Like, that's my main inhibition is legality, right? That's where my main inhibition lies of, like, I never want to throw the first punch unless there's, like, a consent thing. Because, again, I live in a state where if both parties are consenting to this fight and there's proof of consent, like, if somebody, like, even so much as, like, records, like, a quick, like, you good? Okay. That's enough to, like, be able to, like, beat the absolute dog shit out of somebody. And also, throwing the first punch is considered legal consent to be punched back, pretty much.
Yeah.
You know? And so, like, if you throw a swing and then get into a fight because of it, you are legally responsible for said fight on both ends. And so, you know, you could be tried for that. And it's like, I don't know. I don't want to. Like, if it were just the fight, sure. There have definitely been times where it's like, I want to kick that guy's ass. But, like, not only is violence not really the answer, it also would create a whole world of other issues because the government's going to stick its nose in, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. It's fun being a big guy though, because I've never like gotten into any situation that I would need to get into a fight. Because I can give a mean death stare, and when you like are like a big ass dude, you can like they assume you can back it. So it's just like everything gets diffused.
See, I make up for that in gusto of just like it's a very quick like not, and I hate having these conversations because there's no way to talk about it without sounding like a fucking like internet tough guy or anything. But like that usually like, you know, nobody's going to say shit to the guy who's very loud and open and being himself, you know, like unabashedly. Like that is a bar where it's like, no, if I say something to that guy, I'm gonna start some shit, you know. Like, people assume I'm down to start shit more than I actually am, and that helps my case a lot of just, like, you know, fuck it, I'll crash out for this. You think I won't? You know? And that's usually enough to, like, goad people into just, like, ah, shit, he will, I'm not doing it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. But, like, other than us fighting and our 50th episode, I'm committing to this, Vox. If you don't, I'm gonna kill you.
You're committing to, like, doing a fight on our 50th episode? We will have some manner of fight on our 50th episode. We're not gonna nail down any specifics now, and then in 40 episodes have to go, hey, by the way, you know, we'll do a fight for our 50th episode.
It will be some manner of fight.
Maybe the mascot heads won't be involved. Maybe I'll just blur our faces or something. I don't know. But either way, a fight will happen, and it'll be great. It will be legendary. But more stories. More stories. You got anything else about the wedding trip you want to talk about? Because I wanted to talk about the bomb. While we're here. Yeah.
So
just like
it's 4:30 in the morning for me. I get driven by my stepdad to go to the airport. Because his sleep schedule lined up with mine at the time, so it was like, okay, he's driving me to the airport. I'm sitting in the Tucson airport, and I get to my gate, and I walk by this bagel shop, and they're selling like, you know, egg sandwiches on a bagel, and I was like, yeah, I'm hungry. I should probably eat because when I travel, I don't end up eating. And I sit down and I get the
I need to tell you about this thing I saw on TikTok. I'm sorry, I saw this thing on TikTok a few days ago where it was like, picture a McGriddle, but with cinnamon rolls as the buns.
Ew.
Dude, it looked so good. It actually looked so good. Because they didn't like lather up the cinnamon rolls properly, so they were like dry cinnamon rolls with like the lightest amount of syrup. Well, like, how do you like a McGriddle? Like, how can you get behind a pancake patty but not this?
Well, because like cinnamon and maple syrup are very different. Like very different.
But
like maple syrup and bacon, or maple syrup and sausage spectacular.
People season their beef with cinnamon sometimes. I've seen it happen.
That sounds rancid. That sounds.
I hear it adds a little bit of sweet. It does sound kind of gross to like straight season the meat with it, but I have heard good things about that as like a holiday thing. Either way, you got a meal at the airport. You got a sandwich at the airport.
I grab a breakfast sandwich and I sit down by my gate and I start eating it, and it's like a veggie. It was called like the Good Morning or something, but I'm sitting in the Tucson airport and I'm eating this like egg sandwich with onions and tomato and bell pepper, and it was so fucking good. It was such a good sandwich. And we had this group chat for the Atlanta trip, so it would just be
so that when everybody arrived, it would be like, hey, here's where my like I started the group chat the night before, I think, and invited everybody in. I was like, hey, here's a little spot where, you know, you could post your flight boarding and keep everybody posted on travel stuff. It was mostly for YV's sake, I remember, because YV was like super duper anxious and super duper like up to the last minute, even after they bought the plane tickets. Just like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I don't know if I'm gonna do it. They were scared to drive on the highway, which is like a laughable concept to me. But I acknowledged their fear and was like, come on, just get over it. Come on, you know you want to go. You'll know. Like, it wasn't even for me as much as like, you know, you'll have a good time. Anyway, the group chat existed. so that
Yeah,
everybody could keep posted of like, hey, I'm awake. It's like 6:30 a.m. I'm beginning the drive to Atlanta. You know, where everybody will be. I'll be there in 4 hours. And then I kept people posted throughout the drive, and throughout the drive, I was being kept posted by everybody else, like Jed, about just like, hey, I'm in the Tucson airport, bought this bomb-ass sandwich, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I was the first one out. Like I was
Jed was the first one out.
Yeah. Cause I got there.
Oh god, can I talk about the fucking my god.
Are you gonna complain about the fucking roundabout?
I'm gonna complain about the roundabout because we went around it like 8 times because I called you like 8 times and you never picked up. Okay, so here's the miscommunication.
I was in the fucking subway.
Anyway. Here's the miscommunication, right? The miscommunication was Jed was like, yeah, we're landing now, so I'll be out in like 5-10 minutes. And I was like, that seems fast, but I'm sure that estimate isn't his own estimate. I'm sure that's like a stewardess's estimate that they give to like the whole plane at the end of just like, hey, we'll have you all out of here in 5-10 minutes, and then you'll be on your way. And to his credit, he was getting off the plane in 5 to 10 minutes, but underestimated, and I had no idea either, how big the Atlanta airport was, and the amount of confusion, and the amount of time it would take. And so I was like, okay. Because what I was going to do was I was going to park it. We were going to park in the parking garage that I have for the gate that you were coming out of. And I was like, okay, we'll just park, and then we'll walk in, and then we'll stand by the gate and wait for Jed to show up, and we'll walk out. Easy peasy. But the gate, the parking garage was full that day, because it was the middle of the summer in the morning. And so, for that particular gate, that parking garage was entirely full. And so it's like, yeah, there's no parking here. You're going to have to go around the roundabout until your friend comes out. And so I was just like, okay, well, I guess we'll do that. And so we went around this roundabout once. And we're coming up, and it's like, we're like right on time for when Jed said he'd be getting off the plane. And I messaged Jed in DMs, and I go, hey, you out yet? And he goes, no response. Absolutely nothing. And then I messaged him again as we're coming up, and it's like, hey, we're coming up to the end of the line here, and there's this guy who's keeping the line moving so that nobody full stops to pick anybody up. You got to keep rolling at all times. You're not allowed to stop for more than like a second or two. And we roll through. And Jed's not out there, and I was like, I don't see Jed out there, and he's not picking up his phone. Or he's not responding to messages. So I'll just call him in a minute. And so I'm texting, I'll call him if we come back around, but in the time it takes for us to come back around, I'll wait and see if he responds. And I wait, and I see if Jed responds. Jed doesn't respond, and we get right back up to where we were. 10 minutes later, we've driven in the big-ass circle of the Atlanta airport, and we're back up to the gate. And I'm like, okay, all right, I need Jed to respond now, so I'm going to, it's been like 10, 20, maybe even... Nah, like 20 minutes after.
No,
it's 20 minutes after.
Like 15.
It was like 20 minutes after, Jed said that they would be getting off the plane and thus getting out. And again, I was under the assumption this was a stewardess's estimate and not like, because I didn't consider security and how long you were going to be on like the tram that they have there.
Well, so here's the thing. And I want to explain a little bit of my side of the story. So I got off the airplane and I started walking in the direction of where it said the bag check. And I figured it was like, here's the tram. And then it had signs pointing towards the bag check and tram. And I was like, okay, I'll just walk this way. I don't need to take the tram. It's not that big of a deal. It's going to be more work to get on the tram. Turns out the Atlanta airport is like half a mile wide. I started walking and I just kept walking and I ended up going the wrong direction and I had to ask somebody and they were like, just get on the tram. And so I did, and I got out of there like instantly. But who the fuck? Why would I? It's an airport. Why do I need to?
They have a tram for a reason. What do you mean?
I mean, like, that makes sense for somebody who's got like mobility issues or things like that. But I'm fine. I can walk it. I just wasn't expecting to be walking for like half a mile. It was absurd.
God. But no, Jed finally gets out. We've done this roundabout like 5 times, and Jed gets in the car. And then Jed's in the car, and we're out of there. We're out of there as fast as we can get out of there. And again, as fast as we can get out of there is like 5 minutes because you have to do the other half of the roundabout before you're allowed out. And so we get out, and we take a very awkward piss next to each other by the Lego store in the mall. And then
because I bought Basil and Vox a wedding gift of very like homosexual Lego sets that they had picked out, and then both Vox and I both needed a piss, so we just kind of like one of our first interactions in person was pissing next to each other, which
was great.
It's so unfortunate for somebody my height to piss next to somebody because you can just like you have to avert your eyes. I can see like anything I want to across the stall because those doors are like 4 foot high. That shit's absurd.
Yeah, no.
But yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, Jed gets to the Airbnb and we get everybody else over time. And everybody's at the Airbnb and Jed goes, I just realized something. The message that I put about that sandwich, I said it was a bomb-ass sandwich. I didn't even consider the fact that I was typing bomb in a message that I was sending from the airport to some of you who were either on planes or at the airport currently. That was probably a bad idea, huh? And then Jed ramped it up and made as many jokes about it as possible.
I did.
But
the first thing, you edited the photo, so you edited my text, so it was just a
after
sandwich,
we had that conversation, after we had this conversation, I edited the text to just say, bought this bomb, and then it's a sandwich.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was funny.
Like, I then like later on did it where it was like it was mostly just to like see how far I could skis people in the group. Whereas like we're sitting in the Atlanta airport parking like roundabout going back, and I remember I said this one, and we were sitting in the Atlanta roundabout, and I go, "Yeah, man, it's a good thing I brought this bomb at." And then I look at my watch, 9:45 a.m. on the 30th to the Atlanta airport. And everybody was like, stop it.
Fucking quit it, because you shouldn't say that shit in an airport. You're fucking testing fate, dude. It sucks. But anyway, we've got many more stories from that wedding trip. Yeah. And many more stories beyond that. But we'll have to tell those in the future, because maybe we'll do another stories episode at like episode 20 or something. Maybe we'll do a follow-up.
We got hella stories.
In another 10, and we'll round up some stories till then, and we'll have a bunch of them to tell come the 20 episode mark. But remember the numbering. The numbering's fucked. You can but this has been Vox and Jed Fight About It, episode 10. This one was the stories episode. Next week we're gonna have a guest. We're not sure who yet. You can catch us live on YouTube as a premiere. These episodes are pre-recorded, but you can catch them as a premiere on YouTube Sundays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check out both of our socials down below. You can check the show out on Spotify if you like on demand, releasing the same time as the YouTube premiere. Sometimes it's a little off because Spotify for podcasters is weird about uploads and timing. But yeah, no, you can check out the show there. Be sure to give us feedback in the comments if it's something that you're interested in leaving. And it's been a good one. It's been a really good episode. It was a very quick recording. I am off to go see Deadpool 2. Or not Deadpool 2, Deadpool 3. Deadpool and Wolverine. See you guys in... Yeah, I'm going back in time. But I'm going to go see Deadpool 3 now. See you guys next Sunday. Goodbye.
Pear-shaped head.
Well, you kind of do have a